Imagine discovering that the greatest enemy in your life is not a person, not an external circumstance, not fate or bad luck. Imagine discovering that the greatest enemy in your life is a part of yourself that you have denied, suppressed, and hidden in the darkest depths of your mind. Today, you will discover why your attempts at change always fail, why you always return to the same destructive patterns, why no matter how hard you try, something inside you seems to sabotage every move toward happiness. Carl Jung called this the shadow, and it is destroying your life in ways you cannot even imagine. The shadow is not just an abstract psychological concept. It is a living force within you, fueled by decades of denial and repression. It is composed of everything you have decided was not acceptable in yourself. Think about your childhood. How many times were you scolded for feeling anger? How many times were you told, "Don't be like that. That's ugly. Good people don't do that." Every time you swallowed your anger, your sadness, your sexuality, your natural aggression, your ambition, you fed your shadow. But here's the disturbing truth. The shadow doesn't go away. It doesn't go away because you ignore it. It grows, it gets stronger, and it finds increasingly subtle and destructive ways to manifest itself in your life. Jung discovered something terrifying. The more you deny your shadow, the more power it has over you. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. Eventually, it will explode to the surface with devastating force. Have you ever wondered why you always choose the wrong partners? Why do your relationships follow the same toxic patterns? The answer lies in shadow projection. When you reject aspects of yourself, you project them onto others. If you have denied your own aggression, you will be irresistibly attracted to aggressive people, or repelled by them in an obsessive way. If you have hidden your vulnerability, you will despise weakness in others, creating cold and distant relationships. But the most sinister thing is this: you unconsciously choose people who will activate the very aspects you most deny in yourself. Your shadow orchestrates these encounters because it wants to be seen. It wants to be recognized. How many relationships have you destroyed because you couldn't handle the mirror the other person was holding up to you? How many times have you blamed the other person for what was, in fact, your own shadow manifesting itself? The man who denies his sensitivity marries a very emotional woman and spends his life trying to control her. The woman who represses her anger attracts explosive men and then wonders why she is always the victim. These are not coincidences. It is the shadow orchestrating chaos. Your shadow doesn't just destroy your relationships. It systematically sabotages your professional and financial success. If you grew up hearing that money is dirty or that ambition is bad, your shadow contains a part that desires wealth and power, but that has been banished to the unconscious. The result? You will unconsciously sabotage opportunities for growth. You will come close to success and then, mysteriously, do something to destroy it. Are you familiar with imposter syndrome? It is your shadow whispering that you do not deserve to be where you are, because somewhere in your mind there is a part of you that has been taught that you are not good enough, that success is not for people like you. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you've repressed your humility, your ability to ask for help, your vulnerability. So you become arrogant, unable to learn, unable to grow. Your shadow manifests as arrogance that drives away opportunities and partnerships. Jung observed something shocking. The most successful people who completely ignore their shadow eventually experience spectacular collapses. Powerful executives who destroy empires because of irrational decisions, leaders who sabotage everything they have built. The shadow always takes its toll. But perhaps the most sinister manifestation of the shadow is outright self-destruction. Addictions, compulsive behaviors, self-sabotage, these are all symptoms of an unintegrated shadow. You drink to silence a part of yourself that you don't want to hear. You eat compulsively to fill a void that was created when you rejected essential aspects of your personality. You engage in destructive relationships because, unconsciously, you believe you deserve punishment. The most disturbing part: you will rationalize every self-destructive behavior. Your conscious mind will create logical explanations for decisions that are actually driven by unconscious forces you don't recognize. Jung saw this time and time again in his patients. Intelligent, educated, seemingly self-aware people who repeated destructive patterns while swearing they wanted change. They weren't lying. They genuinely didn't realize that a part of them was actively sabotaging their efforts to improve. The shadow is like a mental virus. It uses your own psychological mechanisms against you. It makes you believe you are making conscious choices, when in fact, you are being manipulated by rejected aspects of yourself. How do you know if your shadow is destroying your life? Jung identified unmistakable signs. Disproportionate reactions. When someone does something that provokes intense and inexplicable anger in you, you are seeing your own shadow reflected in them. The intensity of the reaction is always disproportionate because you are not just reacting to their behavior, you are reacting to the aspect of yourself that you deny. Repetitive patterns. If you always attract the same type of problematic person, if you always make the same mistakes, if you always sabotage the same areas of your life, your shadow is in control. It is recreating the same situations because it wants to force you to confront what you are avoiding. Obsessive judgments. Those people you criticize the most, despise the most, who bother you the most, they are mirroring aspects of your own shadow. Jung said, "What you condemn most in others is what you deny most in yourself." Recurring dreams. Your shadow speaks through dreams. Dark characters, situations you would avoid in real life, scenarios where you act completely differently from your conscious self. These are all messages from the shadow trying to communicate. Low energy and depression. When you repress large parts of yourself, you also repress your vital energy. Depression can be a sign that essential aspects of your personality are being stifled. But Jung discovered something even more frightening. There is not only your personal shadow, there is also the collective shadow, the aspects that society as a whole rejects and represses. We live in a society that glorifies toxic positivity, condemns anger, pathologizes sadness, and criminalizes certain natural impulses. The result? A massive collective shadow that manifests itself through violence, wars, extremist movements, and what Jung called mass possession. You participate in this collective shadow every time you share hate online, every time you dehumanize groups of people, every time you project your own flaws onto others, politicians, celebrities, social groups different from your own. The epidemic of anxiety and depression in modern society, Jung would say it is the result of an entire culture that forces people to repress fundamental aspects of human nature. We are a neurotic civilization, trying to live with only half of ourselves. And here's the most disturbing part. Individuals who do not integrate their own shadows become vulnerable to possession by the collective shadow. They become fanatics, extremists, people capable of acts of unimaginable cruelty, all while believing they are doing good. Jung observed a terrible pattern. People who spend their entire lives denying their shadow often experience what he called an enneadromia, a sudden and dramatic reversal to the opposite of what they have always been. The pastor who preaches morality and is caught up in sex scandals, the politician who defends family values and has a personal life in ruins, the pacifist who explodes in violence, the chronic optimist who commits suicide. These are not simple hypocrisies. They are manifestations of shadows that have been repressed so strongly that they eventually explode catastrophically. But even when there are no dramatic explosions, the price of denial is constant and brutal. You live only a fraction of your totality. You have access to only a small percentage of your energy, creativity, and potential. Jung said that the person who denies their shadow lives a life of neurotic mediocrity, always feeling incomplete, always fighting against impulses they don't understand, always being sabotaged by forces they don't recognize. But there is a way out. Jung called this the integration of the shadow, and it is one of the most courageous and transformative processes a human being can undertake. Integration does not mean acting on all your dark impulses. It means recognizing them, understanding them, and transforming them into conscious strength. First step, brutal recognition. You need to admit that there are parts of you that are selfish, destructive, primitive, and even cruel. Not to hate yourself, but to know yourself completely. Second step, tracking projections. Every time you have an intense reaction to someone, ask yourself, what is this person mirroring in me that I don't want to see? Third step, internal dialogue. Jung recommended literally talking to your shadow. Ask what it wants, why it is acting in a certain way, what needs are not being met. Fourth step, creative integration. Find healthy ways to express dark aspects. Your aggression can become assertiveness. Your thirst for power can become leadership. Your repressed sexuality can become creative passion. Fifth step, acceptance of wholeness. Understand that you are simultaneously capable of great good and great evil, of love and hate, of creation and destruction, and that this wholeness is exactly what makes you human. When you integrate your shadow, something extraordinary happens. You stop being controlled by unconscious forces. You stop sabotaging yourself. You stop projecting onto others what is yours. More importantly, you gain access to an immense amount of energy that was being used to repress aspects of yourself. This energy becomes available for creation, for love, for real growth. Your relationships transform because you stop trying to fix in others what needs to be fixed in yourself. Your work improves because you stop fighting against parts of yourself. Your mental health improves because you are no longer at war with yourself. Jung said that the person who integrates their shadow becomes individually, not in the sense of isolated, but in the sense of having access to their wholeness. They become capable of real love because they accept their capacity for hate. They become capable of real compassion because they recognize their own potential cruelty. But here's the ultimate truth. Most people will never do this work. They would rather continue to be victims of their own shadow than face the complete truth about themselves. The question remains, will you be one of them? Or will you have the courage to confront the darkness you carry within you and transform it into the light of consciousness? Because your shadow will not go away. It will only stop destroying your life when you finally recognize it, embrace it, and integrate it into the totality of who you are. The choice, as always, is yours. But now you know, as long as you continue to hide your shadow, it will continue to destroy your life in ways you cannot even imagine. Jung said that we do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by becoming aware of the darkness. Your shadow is your most brutal teacher and your greatest treasure. The question is, will you have the courage to learn from it?